Ciao and welcome. Summer is here, and in Sicily when summer arrives there is an abundance of all sorts of vegetables. We are not in Sicily, we are in the UK, but I will be replicating the sort of food that we'll start eating this time of the year. And I'll be making a vegetarian stroke vegan pasta using vegetables which are in season in Sicily. So I've got here one eggplant and one zucchini and one red bell pepper, or you can use a green pepper. It doesn't really matter the color. Also, if you look here, I've got some very small zucchini from Julie's vegetable patch. This one has got a flower. She has picked them earlier because apparently it will reinforce the plant and the future fruits will be bigger. So this is a little bit of a casualty. So I'm not sure how I'm going to use them. Maybe I will use them for choreography at the end. We'll see. A couple of small white onions, or you can use a large one. Red, white, doesn't matter. 1 clove of garlic. I've got here some fresh plum tomatoes, and I'm not sure if I mentioned the tomato puree, a little tomato puree. Pasta wise, today I've opted to use some spirali, very summer dish or type of pasta. Julie loved them, so we decided to go for this, but also you can use pennette or farfalle or anything you like, but short pasta was probably a little bit better. And also I will be using some cheese, Parmigiano Reggiano. If you're vegan, you might want to choose to use some vegan cheese or drop it all together. And I'm not sure altogether yet. I've got some ricotta. Depending on how I feel at the end, I might or might not use it. On the herbs front, this is the king of summer, basil. I will be complementing the dish with some basil at the end. And also, before I forget, a little chili flakes here. I like chili flakes, so I will be adding a little just to spice it up. But if you're not keen, do not need to worry. Of course, olive oil, salt and pepper. Let's make a start. I should have actually said that I will be using a couple of cloves of garlic, one to make the soffritto and one to cook the tomatoes. I will be cooking them separately, but I'll show you what I mean. So with this one, I'll just crush it first, and I'll put it on one side, and I've got my little onions, and I'll chop them in medium-sized pieces, just like this. I've added a little olive oil in a pan, temperature medium-high, and I will leave my onions and the garlic to sizzle gently for about 5 minutes. In the meantime, I'll get the other vegetables ready. The reason why I'm using a bread knife, by the way, is because it's considerably easier when I chop these vegetables, especially today, as I will be doing them considerably small, and I think it's also considerably safer. So I'll chop the aubergine in half, and then I'll go along and I'll use the flat piece as a base, and I'll start slicing it in 1/2 centimeter strips like this. And I'll make some horizontal strips, and then I'll go along and I'll cut 1/2 centimeter cubes, just like this. I always think it's quite remarkable when you slice eggplants in small cubes like this, how big they look in terms of volume. Look, it's quite a lot there all of a sudden. And I'm now working on my zucchini, and I'll do exactly the same, but I'll use a different technique to see if you can be a little bit quicker. So I'll cut it like this first, then I'll turn it the other way around, and I'll do some vertical strips again. And once I got the little soldiers all lined up, I'll go along and I'll chop in little cubes, again 1/2 centimeter. As they say in this country, there are many ways to skin a cat. I never understood what I meant, but I say it. Pepper next. I'll chop it in half, and I'll make sure that I remove all of the white stuff, which is very unpleasant and bitter. This is when you can do with a different knife, but I'm a little bit lazy today, so I'll stick to this one. Also, do ensure that you remove as many seeds as possible. It's not the end of the world, they're not too bad, but if there are no seeds, even better. When you slice peppers, by the way, do not slice them from the shiny side, because the skin is quite slippery and you could end up actually cutting yourself. Turn it this way, and then it's considerably easier, and as this is rougher, the knife will not slide. But just like I did with the eggplant and the zucchini, I'll chop now into little cubes, approximately 1/2 centimeter to 1 centimeter each piece. With Julie's addition to this dish, I've got a little idea. So I'll leave this whole, but this one I'll chop it in half, just like this, and I'll leave a little bit on the top. And likewise, I'll do the same with this one. Of course, you will not necessarily have this, so don't worry, I'm just showing you what I'm doing. I'll cut this in half, and I'll show you later. I am 5 minutes in, and you can see that my onion is lovely and soft, and I can safely add all of my chopped vegetables now. But try not to make as much mess as I am. And this is a good time to add a little salt. I will be adding 1 teaspoon, and also a little pepper, quantities to taste. I've lowered the temperature to medium. I'll mix everything together. I'll place the lid on and I will leave them to cook now for about 10 minutes. And this is a much healthier way to cook your vegetables without compromising on flavor, but also without having to use too much oil. What will happen is that because the lid is on, there will be lots of condensation and steam created, and the vegetables will cook considerably faster, but also they retain their moisture and they will taste delicious. In the meantime, I'll get my tomatoes ready. So this is my second clove of garlic and I'm slicing it as thinly as I can. And here is a little frying pan and I'll add a little olive oil on top, followed by my garlic. I'm going to use a good handful of plum tomatoes, about 120 grams. And using my trusted bread knife, again it comes into its own for jobs like this, I will slice them in half. And whilst everything is still cold, I will add them to the garlic. And this is also where I'm going to be adding a tiny little amount of chili flakes, like this, not too much, as you might know, Julie's not too keen. I'm not going to add any salt, as I've already added salt to my vegetables, but I'll put a little pepper and I'll give everything a good mix. And I mentioned earlier the courgettes from Julie's garden, so I will strategically position them flat way this way, and I will do also this little one over here and this one over here, and I'll move to the hob. And I'll start this on high so that the garlic starts releasing its beautiful flavor, but I will very soon turn it down onto medium, that number 5, and I will leave everything to cook for about 5 to 7 minutes. The tomatoes will completely cook, the garlic will also cook nicely without burning, and my little zucchini will also get beautiful and brown underneath. In the meantime, I'll check the vegetables so you can see what I meant. They're beginning to soften up, so just go along and give them a little turn, and then put the lid back on and leave them to cook until they're lovely and soft. And these are nearly done, so a couple of minutes before I turn them off, I'm going to add a drizzle of balsamic vinegar, about 1 teaspoon, and I'll mix it in and I'll leave it to cook now for another couple of minutes and then I'll turn them off. You might be wondering why the balsamic vinegar. That is my little addition. I think adds a beautiful summer flavor to the whole dish, and it distinguishes from anything else that you might have tried before. So my vegetables have been gently cooking away for a good 10 minutes. Let's take another look, and actually you will see that they've shrunk considerably also in size, which is an excellent sign, and they feel almost ready. However, before I finish them off, I've got a little tomato puree here, so I'll add about 1 teaspoon here in the middle, and I'll mix it in so that all of the vegetables have got a little bit of the sweetness flavor from the tomato puree. And I'll place the lid back on for another couple of minutes. In the meantime, I'll get the pasta going. Water is boiling, I'll add a little salt and then my pasta goes in. Always wait until the water is boiling before you add your pasta. I've seen many people cooking pasta from cold. Don't do that. I think I've said that before. Also, make sure that your sauce is pretty much done before you start cooking your pasta. Lots of chefs will tell you, oh, you can start this almost from the beginning. I wouldn't, I never do, because you might get into a hiccup and then you'll end up overcooking the pasta. All you will be doing is just adding a further 5 minutes. Better be safe than sorry. According to the instructions in the packaging, and you will have to judge it depending on what you're using, this pasta requires 8 minutes to be fully cooked. So I will be cooking it for 6 in here, and then I'll finish cooking it in there with my vegetables. So read your packaging and just take 2 minutes away, and then you can do the same. And I will also be using some of the starchy waters to give me a little bit of a creamy finish. And my 6 minutes are almost up, so the first thing I'll do is to pinch a little bit of my starchy water so that I can find it later. I think 3 ladles would be more than enough, and I'll go and drain the pasta. So my vegetables are back on the hob. At the moment they're on a medium temperature. I will add the pasta first, followed by half of the water. And I turn the temperature up again, and I'm now finished cooking the pasta in the sauce, and occasionally I will be adding a little bit more of my starchy water to make sure that it stays nice and moist. It looks like I'm going to use the whole mug. And literally this will only take about a couple of minutes max, so make sure that you don't overcook it, otherwise the pasta will become very gluey. And I am almost there now, so finishing touches. So here is my pasta, followed by my beautiful tomatoes, which have been marinating in garlic. I mentioned earlier that basil is the king of herbs in the summer in Sicily, so that goes in next, followed by a final drizzle of olive oil on top. And I'll give everything one final mix, and I'll place the lid on, and I will leave it now rest and infuse for 1 more minute. And during this time the oil and the basil will release a tremendous amount of flavor, and then we can try it. And here I've got my special Italian plate which I use for this recipe, so I will use it today also. And this looks and smells absolutely wonderful, just like summer. And of course, let's not forget Julie's contribution to this dish there. And I will put my courgette flour in the middle like this. It looks quite good. And I'll try some, and as I said before, you do not have to add any cheese, so I'll try as it is, as sometimes it's nice to see what food is like without any additional cheese. But Parmesan cheese, ricotta, both entirely up to you. I'll decide later, but I'll let you know what it's like first. It's perfetta. The addition of the balsamic vinegar is a real treat. And also the chili flakes I put in, they add a little bit of spiciness. It's beautiful, it's just like summer. Delicious, simple to make, and also quite economical if you think about it. Bake it and let me know what you think. Grazie, thank you for watching, and as always, buon appetito. Ciao ciao.